Okay, hello and welcome to another video. We're having a little casual brewski here. We're gonna have a chat. I'm gonna answer some of your freaking questions. And I got a little friend for you guys to meet. This is Rocket. He's a little tired right now. He's trying to take a nap. Come here, dude. Come here. Say hello to YouTube. Oh my goodness. Look how cute he is. This is Rocket. He looks like Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. It just kind of suits his personality. He likes to move around a lot. He's pretty quick. Look at how already he's like, put me down. Dad, put me down. I don't want to be here. Hey, okay. You can go back to napping. I'll stop using you as a public display. You're all right down here. Just taking a little nap. Tired guy. Okay, I'm going to answer some Q's. Here's the physique, you know, looking freaking thick and juicy, somewhere in the 215 to 220 poundage range, 6'1", dropped maybe 4 pounds in the new year of fat, 'cause I'm looking a little fluffy by like lifting bodybuilding standards, by like normal human standards. I'm looking fine and healthy, but trying to get down, trying to probably lose another 10 pounds of fat so that the abs are popping. How's my arm look in this natural light? Huh? Look at that, eh? Should I hold it in this position and pretend I'm not flexing the whole time? And just act natural. Act natural, dude. This is just how I look. I'm not flexing at all. The beer is heavy. I'm just holding a heavy beer, man. This is just the way my fucking body looks at all times. Why do you look erect? No, I'm fluid, man. I'm flaccid. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna answer some Q's here. You're gonna learn some stuff to get more jacked, hopefully. That's the goal. What's the point of even watching a video like this if you're not gonna learn something to get more jacked, eh? Just gotta listen to a madman ramble on. Regarding the brewski, somebody brought it to my attention, which I think this is worth mentioning, that, you know, for the young whippersnappers out there, the teenagers, shouldn't be promoting alcohol consumption, which is fair. So if you're underage, do not drink alcohol, all right? Wait till you're of age. And generally, you know, having a casual brewski, I think, can be a good thing. But binge drinking, to each his own. It can be fun, not good for your health, not good for gains in the gym. But I like to have a little casual, okay? So it doesn't mean you have to do it, though, all right? It's just me, just having a little brewski, not a crime. Don't drink if you're underage, all right? Don't know why I'm moving my hands like this. You ever, like, sometimes it's like you guys are watching this video from the recording of it, but sometimes I like step out of filming and I'm looking at it from like a third person. I'm just like sitting in my living room talking to a camera, like saying fucking stupid shit that doesn't make any sense. And then I laugh at myself. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I don't know. Anyways, cheers to more gains. Quick note about the direction of the channel. Any of you that have been rocking with me, click on my videos, leave likes. Guy can't talk. He's got half a beer in him. He's already slazooled. Slippery sloppery slizzard. Kronenberg Blanc, by the way. You're like, Jesus Christ, man. Stay on task. Stay on topic. It's impossible to listen to you when you change the subject every 3 seconds. Yeah. Making some different videos, reacting, shit, trying something new, getting creative with it. Some of those videos are fun to make. I watch a piece of content, you know, that pops up on my YouTube and I'm like, oh man, I got something to say about this. Let me make a video about it, react to it. So, I don't know if you guys like it or not. Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't. But, probably keep doing it, kinda. Sometimes it's like, why am I talking about other people? But then if I just talk about the insights or ideas around training that I have, sometimes it's like a little more boring. So it's sort of like a better vessel of delivery to piggyback it on top of another piece of content. Like it almost makes it a little more interesting. To be like, this person made this video and that's good or bad, and then I'm gonna add this on top and give my take on it. It's like a little bit more engaging. So that's why I started doing that or trying that. But in this video, you're just getting straight up fucking madman Matt. Just rambling about fucking biceps, pipe daddies, dude. You know? you're not doing the arm program yet, like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like quit being such a massive pussy. Do the program already. Real talk, you don't need any program necessarily. You know, working out's not that complicated. But I do think it will benefit you if you're like super invested. I really want big arms, you know, because I put everything that I've learned in there based on my own like personal experience, getting the pipes up to like a freaking, you know, juicified level. Let's see if we can just, look at that, look at the width. Look at the width, dude, yeah. I'm gonna talk more about, you know, my physique and the gains of making or whatever, little physique update discussion. Made a few changes to my life, but we'll leave that for the end of the video. Right now, we're gonna get to the point and answer a few cues. So, number one, Shimmer 9 Gav. Great question. How often do you increase your intensity? I find if I increase something each session, I end up injured eventually if I increase 1 rep each session. However, if I keep things the same for weeks, then take a deload or a rest week, then I come back stronger and can actually safely load up a little heavier. What do you do? Thanks. So this isn't that much a question about intensity as it is what rate of progressive overload do you aim for? Because, you know, as we all know, one of the keys to getting juicy is to progressively overload, to be able to add more reps and weight over time. You're going to get stronger, you're going to gain more muscle. This is generally true for most people's pursuit of gaining extra juiciness, extra muscularity. The thing here that you have to watch out for, though, is form breakdown. And so what I've found is that chasing progressive overload is a good move. That's what you should do. You should go in there and have really high intensity, warm up properly, use good form, practice the movements, and then go to town trying to get an extra rep. And then once you get the reps up high enough, 15 reps with the 80-pound curling it, I banged out 15. The next week I got another, okay, I'm going to increase to the 90, and I'm going to let the reps drop back down to like 11. And then every session I'm going to try to get 12. I'm going to try to get one more than I did the previous week. The problem that inevitably you're going to run into is that your form will deteriorate because you're chasing numbers. And so a technique that I found effective, which is going to be my recommendation number one, is that you do form reset days where you let go of the number. You use the same weight. Let's say, again, you're curling and you get in the 80-pound barbell for like 12 or 13 reps the past couple workouts. But, you know, maybe your form's getting a little crazy and you don't realize it, and, you know, the weight and the numbers have been going up and you get excited, you get addicted to it, and every session you want to get an extra rep and then increase the weight, and that's like kind of what the success of your lift is based on, and you feel kind of like a bit of a failure, like if you don't get that, so you're really pushing for it, which is, again, a good mindset to have, because you don't want to be complacent. You want to have a sense of urgency, and you want to be in attack mode. So you're doing the right thing there, in my opinion. But inevitably, you're going to push your form to kind of get shittier, maybe without even realizing. This is what usually happens, to get those extra reps and weight. And so you got to do a form reset workout where you use the same weight, but you just go, I'm not chasing a number, and I'm just going to watch my form. And I'm going to push with maximum intensity, but I'm not worried about getting 12 or 13. I'm just going to let the reps fall where they may, pushing to absolute failure, but prioritizing form over the reps. And the reps will probably drop some. And then you'll realize, you're like, oh, I'm actually at like 10 reps with the 80-pound barbell curling it, not 12 when I reset my form. So that's something you should work in intermittently, like once a month. Do a form reset session. That helped me a lot to kind of balance this game where you're like pushing for more and you are making strength gains, but some of it is form slippage. And like a month down the road, it's like hard to tell what or how much. Then you use that same weight and do a form reset session. And you'd be like, okay, I wasn't at 12 reps, I'm at 10, but you know, I still went up from the 70-pound barbell for 11 up to the 80-pound barbell for 10, which is like definitely an increase. I've definitely progressively overloaded. So that just comes with the territory. When you're chasing reps and weight, it's inevitably you're gonna let your form slide in favor of getting those numbers. But I would recommend keeping the intensity the same. Getting injured with this stuff, I would say, is probably a combination in this case, Shimmer 9 Gav, of letting your form deteriorate and also not warming up properly and not taking the time to execute the movements well. So a couple strategies I'm going to give you. In the last video that I made, I talked about warm-up sets, and I think doing at least 3 warm-up sets before your first lift of the session, which the first lift of the session, a lot of the times you're going to be, aiming to increase the weight and reps like that. You're tracking that because you're fresh, and that's going to be your maximum output. So you should, for most lifters, for most of your sessions, try to keep it consistent, the movement that you're doing, and always push to do more. Given that, you need to warm up. So say again, use that same example where you're doing the 80-pound barbell for curls. Your first warm-up set, do the 40 and just do like 5 or 6 reps, and then rest like 30 to 60 seconds. Then go up to the 60, another 5 or 6 reps. Rest a minute, then go up to the 70, 5 or 6 reps. I would at least do those 3 warm-up sets, and then rest 1 to 2 minutes. Go up to the 80, hit your first working set. That, 1, warms up the muscle, so you're less likely to get injured. 2, allows you to screen for little tweaks and twinges, because depending on how you slept, what weird position you were sitting in, a lot of the time, you might have a little cranky shoulder, and you're not going to pick that up if you just jump straight into a working set. You're going to create an injury, especially if you're pushing with maximum intensity. So it's a warming up of the muscle to reduce injury, and it's a screening process to make sure your joints are feeling good. If you're taking your lifting seriously and you're going to push your body to the maximum, you need to do it in like a considerate, careful way where you're like, okay, body, I'm going to ask this from you, but I'm going to prep you properly so that you can perform at a high level. And I think a lot of people miss that and forget that because it's kind of tedious and boring. You just want to get in there and chuck the weight around, but that's a trade-off. Your risk of injury is going to be much higher. Second thing would be not giving yourself a chance to perfect your form with the movement. And I don't think perfect form should be the goal, but you need to at least take the time to do some sets where you are coming close to perfecting the form. So in the case, again, of our standing curl, which, there's not that many things that could go wrong, but you still could get injured. You need to take time to use really light weight, and maybe these are warm-up sets, and you just do a whole bunch of reps where you're just slowly controlling it. You're keeping your shoulders back, a little bit of tension in your upper back to keep your shoulders kind of retracted, keep your elbows stationary at the side, come down to like a good stretch position, either full lockout or just shy, come all the way up with control. And think about the muscle stretching as you lower it and then contracting and squeezing as you bring it up. And if you always just go in there and try to chuck weight around, you're never going to give yourself the chance to develop a mind-muscle connection and develop your skill of executing that movement. And especially when you get into like pressing movements or like squatting or deadlifting, it's like you need to do the movement with lighter weight where you can develop good form. And so if all you do is chase reps and weight and you don't do warm-up sets and you don't do sets where you're like in a lighter weight where you're just practicing the movement to really, give yourself a chance to feel the working muscles. Because it's hard to do that when you just go in there and try to chuck weight around. But both things have benefit. I think if all you do is really lightweight, perfect form, controlled, you're leaving some shit on the table or some gains on the table by not going in there and letting the form slip a little bit, given that you've built up that foundation where you know what it feels like to execute the movement properly, and you're going to try to maintain that form as good as you can while pushing to maximum failure. It's going to slip a bit, but you're kind of striking this balance where you're not going to be setting yourself up to have a high risk of injury if you do those things. And you can see in some of these sets here, like my form's not perfect, but I do a whole bunch of warm-up sets, and I give myself, and I've practiced the movements for many years with lighter weights to make sure that I know how it should feel. And I think it really reduces your risk of injury massively. The last part, where you take a deload and then come back stronger, I would question, like, this is not common, but maybe you're slightly overtraining. I don't know what your split is, what your frequency is, what your volume is, and remember, the stimulus that you create on your muscles with primarily the combination of your intensity, your frequency, and your volume. So how hard, how often, and how much? Those 3 questions, however you choose to answer them with the structuring of your programming, you want it to be in a way that stimulates growth. And so you want that cocktail, that combination where there's a lot of different ways to train, and that's why like people get so confused and like high volume, low volume, once a week, every day, and there's like this constant like debate, and like science is always like new study, you know, the volume. I'm like, man, there's like you got to tweak. There's different ways, but generally speaking, that cocktail or that stimulus, as you progress, needs to get more intense. So whatever you're doing in the beginning, let's say it's like 90% of failure, not all the way to failure. That's your intensity. That's how hard. Your how often is once a week, and your how much is like, I don't know, 6 sets. In the beginning, that might stimulate a bunch of growth. But then the next, like after 6 months, you're plateaued, and now you need to adjust something to make it harder. That's where I think a lot of people get lost, where they're like, well, what is it? And there's like so much gray area and there's so much confusion. It's like you're looking for like a simple answer of like more sets or less sets. And it's like, well, it depends on the other parameters because they're all kind of working together. And there's additional factors as well, but to keep it relatively simple here, those 3 parameters are going to be what drives most of your growth. And of course, again, it's dependent on your foundation of consistency, which 95% of people don't have. So then adjusting these parameters doesn't even matter, because the growth of those things sits on the foundation of consistency. And if you don't have a foundation, they just plummet to the ground and don't really produce any of the results you want. If you kind of consistent and you fall off, it's like it doesn't really matter, because you're not staying consistent enough to make these tweaks and adjustments to continue to create a greater stress or stimulus to produce more muscle growth over time. It's not going to matter that much. And anyways, I'm really rambling, but I think that's where a lot of people get lost. And that's why it seems so confusing. It's like there's a lot of different ways to do it. You know, you could drop the sets a bit if you find a way to push that set to higher degrees of failure, and simultaneously maybe train a little more often, train twice a week instead of once, but do, 4 sets in each session instead of 6. And you develop the skill of intensity further, where you find some technique, depending on the movement, where you can push a bit harder. Maybe you go down to partials at the end, I don't know. That new cocktail, which is different than what you've been doing previously, could stimulate growth. And then people will take blanket statements of like training beyond failure, good or bad. 8 sets of volume, good or bad. Twice a week or once a week, good or bad. It's like you can't, it's not a fair representation of the true process, in my opinion, if you don't contextualize it with the other parameters. And that's why like a lot of these like scientific studies and shit, I'm like kind of opposed to the findings, because I'm like, in my experience, I think all of these things are playing off one of each other. When you try to isolate one variable, and try to make like rock solid recommendations, which, content pulling out the findings of science, I think compounds the issue, because as I've rambled about in previous videos, they're kind of leveraging or manipulating the findings to produce it as if it's some novel thing that's going to contribute to massive amounts of growth. When in reality, the study is saying like, based on everything we've done so far, it seems like in most cases, X amount of volume leads to the most growth. And then somebody will take that and be like, science, 20 sets per week is what leads to growth. And everybody's like, there it is, that's the rule, that's what you have to do. Like, fuck man, that's not accurate. Let me have a little hydration break. Anyways, and I think you're better off to just spend time tweaking and adjusting those parameters. I think you're actually going to get more results out of that than trying to let these kind of limited scientific studies tell you, because it's just so dynamic. And then there is the element of individual variability, and then the element of at what position in your journey are you at? Are you a brand new beginner, or you've been training for 10 years? The question or answers might completely change depending on that. What is your nutrition like? What is your sleep like? What are your genetics like? Like, you can't control for all variables. There's so many moving things. To isolate it in a study and say, rock solid, this is what you should do. So that's why I think you're way better off to just develop consistency. That's your foundation. If you don't have that, you got no business even asking questions or trying to don't use your brain. You don't need to use your brain or your consumption of information anymore. Until you have that, it's just, how do I change my habits to actually show up all the time? And then developing intensity as a skill is critical. Once you have those two things, then how do I progress
my training so that the stimulus or stress gets more difficult over time. And you do that with the tools you have at hand, which are primarily how hard, how often, and how much. Intensity, frequency, and volume. And different combinations of those things can be compiled together to create a more significant stimulus, where you find a way to train harder. And I already gave you examples. I think you get it. I hope so. Sometimes I'm like, it makes sense in my mind, but I don't know if I'm communicating it accurately. And then there's additional factors that you can, I would say, are less impactful, but can also make a difference, like tempo, rep range, rest times, which can also be tweaked in the same way. All of those ingredients go in to create this cocktail. And when you drink it, does it lead to more muscle growth? When you apply that combination of training structure to your workouts, does it produce muscle growth? And I think the best way to do that is just experimenting on yourself. And you really have nothing to lose. As long as you're consistent, as long as you're invested in developing intensity as a skill, you're probably not going to go wrong from tweaking and adjusting the cocktail and then assessing how your body responds. Because most of your growth is going to come from consistency and intensity anyways. And then it's just this added benefit of like, am I aware and reflective with my training process to keep making adjustments so that I give myself more difficult stimulus over time to encourage more growth. That's a freaking ramble fest, eh? Anyways, that's what I do. Hopefully that makes sense. The last point I'll make with this question is it's really targeting progressive overload, and something I've seen a lot with fitness content. I think people cope with progressive overload, meaning they come up with reasons why it's not important because they can't progressively overload anymore. I think at the end of the day, it is still the most effective tool for producing muscle growth, but it can be so discouraging if you continually invest in it as you progress. And what you're signing up for or committing to is long periods of no evidence of progress. And so the tendency then is to pull your enthusiasm or focus out of that and convince yourself that it's not all about progressive overload, because I haven't progressively overloaded this lift in a year, and that just feels like an immense failure. And so therefore that's not what it's about, and I'm going to find something else to put my energy into, and I'm not going to worry that much about my progressive overload. I think that there are other like adjustments and message and tweaks that you can make. There is wiggle room 100%, but I think staying focused on that as much as you can, regardless of the levels of defeat that you feel as an advanced lifter. In this case, shimmer, just the way that you're saying this is you take a week off and you come back stronger. It's like you're still in an area where just like standard consistency, intensity, some reasonable structure of training is producing progressive overload. You're in that like glory period of gains where gains are aplenty. So it's awesome. So you just need to use some of the things I recommended to stay healthy and avoid injury. And you're going to continue to see progress. But eventually that weans off. And I think it's just an easy like escape to take. Like there's a door, along your journey up the mountain of progressive overload, there's exit doors all the way. And somebody's standing there being like, hey dude, it's not actually that important to keep trying. Because like you're stuck at this point on the journey and you've been there. And you're like, it's like just focus on this other shit instead. I think it's more difficult, but gives you a better chance of seeing more progress if you go, holy fuck, like I'm not progressing. And it's like super discouraging, but I'm going to keep focusing on it. And I'm not saying like you should be stubborn and only do that. Like you definitely want to be creative and start to try different things, which I'm like a huge proponent of and I've done myself. But I don't let myself deviate to say, well, progressive overload led to most of my progress in muscle gain. And now that it's dried up, I'm just going to convince myself that that's no longer an effective way to proceed. I think there's like a middle line to that where like I'm going to keep trying different shit, but I'm not going to convince myself that somehow now all of a sudden that increasing the weight and reps over time doesn't produce muscle growth just because I'm at this like advanced plateau or this like advanced level. It's difficult. I think you just have to deal with that mental discomfort and feeling like you're not making progress, which is very discouraging. But I think you need to like be steadfast with it and continue to show up with a positive attitude towards it, even though you're getting an additional rep once every 3 months or something, you know? And the downside is like, if you get too fixated and you're not willing to add anything creative or like try some drop sets or I definitely think there's benefit to that and mixing that in once your progressive overload gains like start to dwindle. But I don't think you should just abandon it completely and go like, that's not effective anymore. Like in my case, like I've kind of switched a bit more to like doing drop sets, which are exclusively done that for like the last month or two, which like aren't really geared to like progressive overload. Progressive overload, you'd want to take like 1 set to failure and then rest an extended period of time, so you don't like completely burn yourself out. Whereas like very first set, I'm going to do like 4 drops. You know, I'm like fatiguing myself. It's like increasing the pump. It's like other things are kind of being prioritized. But within that, I'm still paying attention to the weight I do, even in the drop sets. And I'm like, ideally, that first set, second, third, and fourth, the weights, you know, from 1 month to the next, like some of them should increase. Like that like rule or foundation of progressive overload, in my mind, should still be present, even if you add more creative adjustments to your training that aren't necessarily like specifically structured to prioritize like traditional progressive overload. I still think you shouldn't abandon that like principle. It should still maintain, but it's like, okay, I'm probably gonna limit myself if all I do is like standard traditional progressive overload, and I'm not willing to like experiment with some different workout structures. Like that will probably limit you. But it's just this tendency to want to like attach yourself to like one thing or the other, and a lot of it's driven by your desire for comfort and to avoid these negative feelings of like, if I'm really invested in progressive overload and then I'm just taking L's over and over and over again, you're going to be primed to want to then be like, well, that's not really what it's about, and I'm just not going to care about that anymore. I think it's actually just mental weakness contributing to that. And then you can come up with all kinds of reasons to justify it and explain why to yourself and to other people. And so that's my take on that, is that I would say it's a balance of, you know, maintaining the progressive overload. I think undeniably produces the majority of muscle gain. But I'm also not going to be so rigid that I'm not willing to like experiment and try different structures and mix it in. But I'm going to keep this strong undertone, regardless of what my training looks like at any point in time, where I'm generally like hoping or trying to have some form of increase of the weight of the reps over time. I want that trend to still go up, because I think you get to a point where it's like, in my experience, like if you can't make substantial improvements to the weight and the reps that you use, the gains are limited. That's what I've seen, regardless of how you structure the training. I think what's kind of deceiving too is that you can like not focus on progressive overload and see some results. So then I think that's why people are like, oh yeah, it's not about progressive overload anymore. It's like I changed the rep scheme and the rest time, and like I'm not actually doing any more weight, but I just slowed down. And it's like the novelty stimulus plays a role there, where it's like you're just doing something different, and you're changing that cocktail in some way, shape, or form. And the adjustments you made the stimulus or the stress you put on your body more intense, so your body was forced to adapt with more muscle gain. That can happen while not like strictly prioritizing progressive overload and like tracking and be able to see clearly I'm now doing more reps and more weight. I made all these other changes where I changed my rep range, I increased the rest time, I bumped the sets up, I dropped the frequency down, I moved all these things around. Now this new cocktail is like, boom, more growth. Oh, you don't need to do progressive overload anymore. I think that's foolish and short-sighted to fall into that. But it's a temptation that will pull you in, because then you're like, oh God, finally I can like leave this like progressive overload bullshit behind that just like makes me feel like a failure and makes me feel like I'm not lifting right because I haven't made a gain in that category at all. And now I saw seemingly a little bit of muscle growth from just abandoning progressive overload and going into something else. But the problem is, what I've seen is that something else is going to diminish as well. And then you're going to be hopping around, and then you're going to come back to Old Faithful. You know, like trying to get back with your ex. You're going to be like, I was wrong. I'm sorry. You know, I had 3 from the club. I was drunk. I don't know what I was thinking. She looked hot. She wasn't even. I shouldn't have done it. But in the moment, my mind was like, this is better than the old ball and chain. Come here. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a good analogy at all. Hopefully you get the point. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. 30 minutes to answer one goddamn question. Okay, Kabosk.d8808. Great name, great handle. Hi Matt. Hi Kabosk.d8808. I just want to say that last year I did only arms with high intensity, and you so right about everything you say in your videos. I grew my upper body from just hitting arms, 2 exclamation marks. Hell yeah, cowboy! But I stopped doing that because I want to hit other parts of the body. Fair enough. And now I'm doing push-pull legs and not see progress. I just don't know how to combine arms and other part of the body. What split do you recommend? Okay, so first thing, just to clarify if anybody's new, I'm not like choosing to just do arms and legs. If I could train my chest and my back, believe you me, I would be fucking on the bench. Okay? I know I'm a little psychotic and all over the place, but I'm not that crazy that I'm choosing to not do bench press, all right? I think another thing people get confused with is, doesn't mean it's impossible for me to do that and that I'll never be able to, but up to this point, I haven't found a solution where I can push a pressing movement or a rowing movement of any form that doesn't, if I push to high intensity enough with a reasonable amount of weight and a reasonable amount of intensity and consistency, blah, 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 to stimulate muscle growth, that the issues in my muscle imbalances and the way my shoulders and hips are sitting get worse, and then I get that numbness and tingling into my face. And the only reason I can train arms, because I stepped away for years, is that I understood the individual imbalances enough to be able to go, okay, if I loosen that up and get my shoulder in this position and have my scapulas rotated upwards, and then my pecs and my lats, my rhomboids, everything's in a stretched position, and it's not contracting and shortening, maybe if I do that and get into this overhead extension and I warm up properly and I loosen up the problem areas, I'll be able to like train a little bit. And then I was. And then I just built on that over time and just listen to my body and go, okay, and my whole warm-up routine is like a wacky freaking jambalaya of shit of like the hips were in this stretch and that stretch, and then I'm rolling my pec, and then I'm sitting on the psoas and releasing my psoases, and I'm doing all these different hanging movements, this active mobility, and I'm paying attention to the way my shoulder is and everything. I'm like, okay, I think we're ready, and then I'm like, all right, let's go to town. So my point being is that if you can train your whole body, I would encourage you to do that. I'm not, and I never, I don't think, will be like, just training your arms is like hands down better for everyone. You know, although I think I'm an interesting example or experiment that I think illuminates a lot of the truths around training. Like one of the main ones being that this idea you need to like specifically isolate all your muscles is like kind of overkill. And obviously you don't want to try to grow your whole upper body with just an overhead triceps extension movement, but if you are consistent, train extremely hard, progress your training over time like I have, you can see substantial growth in your whole body, which I think just explodes people's brains. Because they're like, but the rear delt flies for the rear delts only, and the seated row is only for the back, and the flies only hit the side delt, and then the pressing is just the chest. And it's like, no, dude, that's not the reality, man. It's pretty hard to do any movement without at least recruiting additional muscles as stabilizers. And I think it's, and if you push really, really hard, use drop sets, partials where the intensity is higher and higher, the stabilizing muscles come online more and more and more because the working muscle is fatigued. For example, the overhead tricep extension, which is the movement that's responsible for 95% of my upper body growth, the tricep is the working muscle, is your overhead, right? But because I can get into a good stretched position here, the pec is stretched, right? And then I'm like keeping my shoulders down and I'm scooping that elbow in, and then letting the weight pull me back. That pec muscle's getting a good stretch. The lat, everybody knows the lat's gonna bring your arm down this way. So I'm putting that into a big deep stretch. And then when I push up and back, the lateral delt, and rear are like getting activated. So, but that's not gonna be substantial if I just do like a chill set, But if I push to absolute failure and go down to partials and then do an immediate drop set, boom, boom, again, and then another drop set, boom, 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 again, and then another drop set, boom, boom, boom. Those muscles that are working to hold myself in that form, and I'm focusing on it, I'm shoulders down, elbow scoop, let it stretch, push up and back. I can feel my pecs fatiguing, I can feel my lats fatiguing, I can feel my shoulders fatiguing. Because they have to work harder and harder as the working muscle fatigues more and more. there's like more asked of those other muscles. A wacky like approach that I'm not saying this is a better way to train, but just due to my individual circumstances, not on purpose, from just finding a way to train arms and then leaning into it, continuing to build upon that, I started to notice growth in those additional areas. Anyways, this whole ramble is for me to say that this is cool, that you're only doing arms, kabosk, and all the power to you, free world, do whatever you want. But I'm not encouraging people to choose to do that if you have the ability to train your whole body. That's the first disclaimer. Doesn't mean you can make your own decision. You can do that if you want, but I'm not going to say that that's like outright better for your whole body development. I think that's a bit of a outlandish statement. But what I think Kabosk is seeing here is that if you do become a specialist in one thing, I think the benefits are that it allows you to isolate the key drivers of your growth, because you're not distracted with like a bunch of different exercises and a bunch of different muscle groups that you think you need to isolate, and you got to figure out how to do these sets for that part and that and that. It's like, I'm just going to pick a handful of movements and blast the shit out of my arms, but I'm going to go in there with aggressive intentions every time. And because I've silenced all the noise and I'm just going to get really good at this one thing, it allows you to elevate your process with training so much more. And I think a lot of people get so distracted with the details and they just look for a new detail, like a new Dr. Mike video that tells you like to grow your back, you can no longer do fucking pull-ups. Like, what the fuck are we saying? And you have to do these like lat preacher things, and you can't do a cable anymore because the coefficient of friction is like, I'm like, what? This is the exact shit that distracts you from focusing on the things that actually drive growth. It's not that, you know, in isolation these things aren't true, but it's such a minute detail. And so my point is that if you super simplify your workouts, and in this case only train arms, it allows you to make advancements in the core foundational things of consistency, intensity, developing intensity as a skill, and then it's so easy to track whether you're progressing or not, because you can't get distracted with pivoting to a new movement or this or that, or changing exercises around to like fool yourself into some quasi form of progress that you're not actually making. It's just blunt and direct. Every time I go in there, I'm starting out with dumbbell overhead tricep extensions. So it's really easy for me to know if I'm progressing, and it's really easy for me to come up with or figure out if I'm making my workouts harder or not, because it's just so consistent. And I superset it with standing curls, and the advantage of that is it forces you to get good at developing intensity and being creative, or like adjusting your approach to continue to create that stimulus or that cocktail to make it harder and harder. Because you only have available I can't change the exercises. So the only things I have available are intensity, volume, frequency. I could push the sets harder, I can add more sets, I can train more often. Those are the things that actually produce growth. So I think that's the advantage of why, if you do some sort of minimalist training and you don't get bored with it and you can stay consistent and you do have enough drive and desire to get growth, that it forces you to develop those things that actually produce growth. And that's why after this experience, I'm like kind of really like singing that song, or like pushing that to be like, so much of this other content is just bullshit to sell you on stuff that doesn't work. Like trust me. And like that's why I'm trying to use myself as an example to be like, if I can see all this growth from just training arms and I'm just focusing on these key things, like that should be evidence to you. Like you can train your whole body, but like this should be evidence that it's just these simple fucking things that you need to develop your process, and it's a psychological habitual procedure or journey that you need to go through to find ways to produce more drive, more energy, more focus, more intent, more thoughts, more reflection about your training. And every time you show up, you're like, there's a sense of urgency, and I know what I need to focus on to make it a productive workout. I want to go in there to grow, and these are the things I need to focus on. I feel very like strongly and passionately, even if you can train your whole body, that's where you need to put your energy. And so that's like what most of my videos, like pushing back against science or pushing back about other content, I'm like, you're just distracting people with these surface level fluff things that make them think they're going to progress, but they never actually lead to more results. So yeah, I think that's probably what Kabowsk is seeing here, is that it just simplifies everything and it makes you focus on the main factors that actually drive growth. I gotta piss. So we're gonna wrap this up. But now, wanted to hit other body parts, now doing push-pull legs, not see progress, is surprising. What I would do, I guess what I'll say, is that what I would do if I could train my whole body like a normal freaking human, which I am not, clearly, that I would have a arm day, and then I would have a like chest, back, shoulders day, and then I would have a leg day. And I would probably go like arms. Yeah, I think I would go, because my priority is arms still, I think I would go arms, then I'd go push-pull, then I'd go legs, and then I'd do it again. So that's 3 days. Then I'd go arms, push-pull, legs. That's 6 days. And probably then take a day off. And I think this would actually be a sick fucking split, because when you hit your arms, at least the way that I do, or I recommend you do, you're gonna be not just hitting your bis and your tris. If you train really hard, you do the overhead extensions of some form, and you're focusing on those cues, you're getting some pec stimulation, but as a secondary kind of in support muscle group. So you hit your arms on day one. You primarily hit your arms, but you get some additional stimulation of your pecs, your back, your delts, the rest of your upper body. And then the next day, you're gonna directly stimulate the rest of your upper body, chest, shoulders, back. And I would superset pushing and pulling movements, where I'd keep them fairly simple, and I would pick like, okay, I'm gonna do like incline dumbbell presses, and then I'm gonna do like maybe seated cable row, or maybe single arm dumbbell row. And I would superset them back and forth the exact same way I structure my arm workouts. Because when you're hitting your pushing movements, the muscles are resting, right? So when I'm pressing, the tris, the delts, the chest are all primarily the working muscles. My biceps, my lats, my rhomboids are mostly resting. And I would hit that set, I'd rest 2 minutes, and then I'd go hit my rows, where the pressing muscles are resting, the pulling muscles are getting worked. I'd rest another 2 minutes, and that like superset structure, I would repeat for like a number of rounds. And maybe I would do like 4 rounds of that with those 2 movements, and then the next 4 rounds I'd pick 2 different movements. First ones I'd maybe do a lower rep range, focusing more on heavy weight. Second, section of the workout with 2 new movements, lighter weight, maybe add in drop sets, try to get more of a pump, something like that. But my point is that you'd be getting a really good amount of frequency to the muscles without probably overtraining them. And this is like assuming you're like maybe not a brand new beginner. If you were a brand new beginner, I would just do like those 3 days spread across the whole week, like Monday arms, Wednesday push-pull, Friday legs, the weekend off. And I would do that for like 6 months. But then as a more advanced lifter, I think you're gonna benefit from this frequency. And the reason I think it's exciting is that you get like intense stimulus to the arm muscles directly on arm day, but some indirect stimulus to the rest of your upper body, chest, back, shoulders. And then the next day you get direct stimulus to chest, back, shoulders, and some indirect stimulus to arms. And then the next day you get rest for your upper body and you hit the fucking legs. And then you go back again. And I've seen benefit from training arms multiple days in a row, but the problem I always run into is that extrapolated over a long time period, my body just can't recover from it. So in the short term, it seems to lead to more muscle growth, but then the recovery capacity is just not there. With this, it's like, I think there's a lot of benefit in active recovery workouts, which I did for a while, but they're just so fucking boring, where you go into the gym and you don't actually train hard, but you're just in there to move the muscle, get blood in there, and I think it helps you recover. You're doing this through the split without having to do some bullshit active recovery day where you don't actually push hard, because on day one, you really stimulate those arm muscles, your bis and your tris, and the chest, back, and shoulders get a little tickle. And then on day 2, you're getting some stimulation of the bis and tris through the pressing and pulling, but primarily you're targeting your chest, back, and shoulders. So you're getting that active recovery day, arms, and then active recovery arms, and then day off on legs, right? And if you looked at the other way, where you on your push-pull day, you get full stimulation of the chest, back, shoulders, and then the next day is off, legs, And then the next day is arms, where you get some indirect stimulus of the chest, back, shoulders, which I think really makes a big difference. I've seen frequency to be a potent stimulator of growth. Probably, I wouldn't make this blanket statement, but if I had to, gun to my head, I would say probably more important than volume. So yeah, I think that would be the way I would train. And you're getting like this added benefit of having some indirect stimulus of the working muscles on the other days to encourage more growth, which maybe sounds like not that important. You might be like, why does that even matter? I think that actually can help to drive a lot of your growth from what I've seen. Because I don't think the muscle growth process is as simple as like go in there, obliterate the muscle, and then just sit around for 5 days. I think there appears to be some value or benefit of still using that muscle during the recovery period. Yes, maybe you don't want to push that muscle to the maximum, tear it down, stimulate growth, and then go in the next day and do the same thing, and the next day, the same thing, and the next day. But maybe it's better to push that muscle to the absolute maximum, and then across those next like couple rest days, do something with it, where you do some sets to like 80% failure. And that's basically what you're doing, because you're hitting those other, muscle groups where you have direct stimulus, if it's the push-pull day, onto your chest, back, and shoulders, but indirect stimulus of the arms. And on the arm day, you have direct stimulus of the arms and then indirect stimulus of the chest, back, shoulders. So you're getting some additional work in there that I think is going to encourage more muscle growth, kind of like an active recovery thing. So that's what I would do if I could train like a normal freaking person. And then the legs, you're hitting your legs twice a week, which is like, honestly, man, like I don't have ambitions to have like gigantic legs. Like I'm just like, my main motivation is like I look at my physique and I'm like, okay, as long as my legs are meeting the like bare minimum of like proportion to my upper body, like I'm good. I know some of you may not agree, but I'm like, I think it looks stupid to have like a really developed muscular upper body and like skinny little legs. But I'm like, I don't really want to have like massive legs where people are like, holy shit. And I look at my physique, I'm like, wow, look at my trunks. And I just got so much chafing. I'm like, fuck, they're so sore and tired all the time because there's so much bigger muscles. I'm not just like, let's just get them to a level where they, are proportionate with my upper body. Primarily, I care about the pipes and the upper body, but let's just bring the legs along for the ride. If you don't agree with that view, that's fair. And maybe there'd be some other split that you do to prioritize hitting your legs more often or something. But I think if you push your leg muscle, the legs take so long to recover too. Like if you really fucking blast your legs, like I don't really see how you could hit them more than twice a week. Arms, upper body, like 100% you can find ways, especially as you get more advanced. But the legs, it's like, I don't know, man. Like they're just, like to hit legs every other day, like maybe if you're on like fucking heaps of like gear, that works. But like I'm just like, at least to this point in my journey, I'm like, it seems like it's counterproductive for recovery, for the muscles, or like growth and everything. But maybe that's just a fucking excuse and a cope, because I don't really care that much about my legs being massive. Maybe if I did, I'd be like come up with a reason why it'd be better to hit them more often. Maybe. Anyways, it is interesting that Kabosk is seeing growth with just arms and then not the same growth while hitting upper body. My guess is that potentially there's some distraction factors that creeped in with kind of going back to a different split where you're not forced to focus on these like key drivers of growth as much. I think maybe the other thing that's possible is that I'm not really sure. That's strange. I would expect you, like if you're applying the same general like workout structure and programming and mentality and approach, and then you go from like just doing arm days to like having an arm day and like an upper body day and legs, that you would see the same amount of growth. The only thing I can think of is that you're overtraining and you're not getting enough recovery. But that's like, normally I don't go for that because that's like so rare. Like to get to that level, like you have to be like going like blitzkrieg, like on crack psycho. Like 99.9% of people, that's not the thing that's limiting them. You have to be going like absurd with your workouts, and you have to be living like a very unhealthy lifestyle where you like don't sleep enough. You're maybe depleting your body with like alcohol or drugs or something. I just farted. I don't know if you guys heard that. But anyways, it's probably a good time to end the video. The last thing to talk about. Oh, we got one more comment here, which is not really like a question. I just want to highlight it because it shows how freaking sick my arm program is. J. Wick Lund 85. Hi at the Limb Lord. I've purchased your program Armzilla. I've only been doing one arm day and oh my god, that pump and the training soreness is insane. A whole other level. Thanks for the best arm program out there. Hoorah, brother. I would say anybody that I've trained in person or that I've worked with, they always say something like that. Where I know the pump is just one factor, but they're just like, holy shit. And like sometimes they don't want to complete the whole workout with me. I don't work out with people that often. I kind of like just doing it on my own, but like I'm opposed to it. And like sometimes I'll meet people at the gym, become friends with them, and then like they want to train together. And like they're always just like, this is fucked. Although they like tap out halfway through and go, that's too much. It's too much volume or like something, you know? Or they're always, that's the reaction. And I don't think it's anything that crazy, but it's just like here, like up the ante. And like I'm bringing that juice. If you're training with me, like we're going to the brink of insanity. Like in every way possible here. While, you know, trying to be smart, warming up properly. I'll always ask like how your shoulders feel, like how's that movement feeling? Giving them form cues, like let's take time to warm up. And then like if you're feeling good and everything's rocking, like let's push it to the fucking limit here. And then let's structure the session in a way where it's gonna stimulate growth, but also like let's have some fun and like pump the shit out of our arms to the point where we look like fucking gorillas walking around. Like that's fun as fuck. I love that shit. So, and I've condensed down that same approach or mentality into the programs. And again, you may say that, like, I don't think pump is the only thing that drives growth, but generally the higher the intensity, unless you're resting for absurdly long periods, the bigger your pump's gonna be. If you're just finding ways to push yourself harder and you're structuring your training in a way that pushes you harder, that demands more of you, you're gonna have a bigger pump. Unless you do like a powerlifting thing where you hit a set and you rest fucking 10 minutes. And yeah, it's gonna be hard to be maximally pumped because you're just like waiting so long in between your sets. So yeah, you will die. Like, I guarantee that if you follow my arm program or the arm workouts and you actually follow it the way it's instructed, you will have the most insane pump you've ever had. And a lot of people, even if you've trained for a while, you do that and you'll go, holy shit, like that is another level. And I think that's worth something because it even just exposes you to realize like, oh, like a lot of people get stuck and they don't know why, but it's because you've never even experienced what the other levels are. So you don't know the difference. So you can't see why you're not progressing because you're just like, I'm doing everything I should. It's like, no, you're fucking not. That was like a limp ass flaccid workout. Look at you, you're not even sweating. Like, you don't even have a pump. Like what the fuck? You're doing everything you can? Bullshit. Yeah, anyways. The last thing to talk about here, anybody who's been like a kind of dedicated follower and you made it this far through the video and you watch my other videos, you'll know that I've kind of hummed and hawed about doing TRT, about doing some PEDs. And, you know, I've really been analyzing and assessing whether I should do it. Are the risks worth it? Do I have a good reason to do it? Do I not? What am I going to promote if I've done it? Even to the point where I signed up and then I was like, nah, it's not right. I can't promote that. Like, how am I going to like justify that to people? Because that's not really the message I want to send. I don't want like young people to be like, let me like get on some testosterone. So I asked for a refund and I was like, you know, what's really important to me in terms of making content or like promoting a message, my message is that despite limitations, despite like a more difficult circumstance of the injuries and issues, I've still found ways to overcome that. And that is immensely beneficial. And I preach that and promote that to anyone. Because even if you don't have physical limitations, you have something. You have a financial limitation where you don't have enough money for a gym membership, you don't have enough time because you have to work all the time. You have like some kind of genetic limitation where like you hold on to a lot of fat or you don't have good genetics for building muscle, whatever it is. Everybody has some form of limitation, mostly. And I think that if you just focus on what you can do and you keep pouring into that, regardless of the situation having limitations, you're gonna make incredible physical progress and also mental progress because you develop this mentality where it's like, oh fuck, like I'll just focus on the positives of what I can do. And if I just keep building on that, I don't get worried about how unideal it is or distracted and I'm not putting energy into like the things I can't do, that I end up getting somewhere that I didn't even think possible. And I kind of applied the same theory to training, staying natural, where I was like, man, a lot of people are not natural, and like I've been training for 15 years and making content, and like I kind of want to at least do TRT or at least try it. I'm going to be 33 soon. But then, you know, I'm like, but like my whole message is to do things despite being in an unideal circumstance, right? And so it's like, well, you know, I want to make greater progress. And like the goal for my physique is like, I want to have like my version of like a Mike Thurston level physique. Like, maybe I don't have that potential, but like I want to be able to get close to that. Or like my version of like, who's this dude I follow on Instagram? Like Matthew something. He's got a great physique too, where it's like, these are very substantial muscular builds. And in more recent kind of months, I've just came to the realization that like, those are just two names of people that I'm like kind of following now, but like over like the past 15 years, there's been all kinds of different people. CT Fletcher, who else? Even Mike O'Hearn for a while. Like I was following like some of his arm advice, and like everybody knows he's like not natural. That's an obvious one. And that's always what I've kind of strived for, was like, I want my version of that physique. And I always like thought it was possible. And then I just started to realize like all these people are on something pretty much, you know? And like the chance that they're natural means there's some freak genetic outlier, which may exist, but there's not that many of them. Like the majority of these people are just on a little bit of sauce, like 100%. I really believe that. And that made me realize that like my goal of what I've been working towards in the gym, although I love the process and everything I gained from it, like it's a combination of an enjoyable process and the experience of working towards a goal that you feel is attainable. And then I just started to realize, I was like, man, like my version of that, which is what I want, like I'm never going to get that staying 100% natural. Like I have a good physique, I have a good build, but that's just another level. Like if you look at these dudes that I mentioned, it's like, yeah, it's just another level, dude. And like, it's pretty clear to me that they're taking stuff or something. And, you know, I was like, well, I don't want to promote that. So like, I'll just continue to be in this like difficult circumstance where like, I want to achieve that goal for myself. And to get there, like 99% of people like at least are on some form of testosterone or some other drugs. But I'll do it without that. Because my whole mentality, even to get to this point, is that I was able to exceed what I thought was possible for myself by just leaning into the things that I can do, even though the circumstance isn't ideal. So in this situation, where I'm still aiming for the same goal, I'm now realizing like it's almost impossible, but that's a good scenario because it's the same mentality. So I'm going to apply that same thing, and then I can promote to everyone to stay natural. And what I realized is that I was ready to do TRT at that time for myself. I'd made peace with it. I've been researching it for 2 years, and like I'm an analytical person. I have a master's in economics, and just like by design, like my dad's an accountant, my grandpa's an accountant. Like there's that like analytical kind of like check all the boxes, like pay attention to all the details. It's sort of like something that comes naturally to me. There's pros and cons to it, but anyways, like my approach with it has been like tons of research, tons of like understanding the risks fully. And then at that time, like a couple months ago, when I like signed up and then canceled because of these reasons, and then, you know, I'm like, oh, I was like almost did it, but I'm just going to stay natural and keep promoting that to you guys. I had made I was okay with it myself. And like, I even thought about it. I was like, maybe I'll just do it and stop making content, because the issue I'm having is that I don't want to promote other people doing this. I don't want any like young dudes who watch any of my videos to be like, oh, he's on testosterone, he's on TRT, or he's on this, like I'm going to do that too. Like that's not the message that I want to put out. So then, you know, I decided that like, okay, I can't do it. But what I realized over time since then is that I'm making the decision for other people then. Like I'm not doing what I want to do. I've made peace with it. I understand what the risks are, and I'm ready to do it for myself. But I have an obligation to my audience to promote a healthy or like good option so far as I see it, so I can't do it. And long-winded, but the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm just trying to be transparent and honest for anybody that like is actually following this journey, is that I'm doing TRT now. I've decided to do it. And, you know, some of you may not agree with that. I know some of you won't. Some of you may be disappointed. If you don't want to continue to watch the channel, that's completely fair. You know, you will be missed, but I totally respect your decision. If you think that that changes things in a way that you no longer want to be part of the community that we have, then I will be sad to see you go, but I also would completely understand why. Not that you need that from me anyways, but I'm just telling you how I feel regardless. And I realized that I did the rocking man, or the rocking chair fucking analogy, where you picture yourself as like an old dude. And looking back, I would regret not doing it, because my goal is to achieve like physical excellence as best as I can with my genetics and what I have capable. And the whole time that I've been chasing that, like that, I gave those kind of examples is like, that's the ideal that I'm going for. That like my version of that. And it's just not possible to attain that completely naturally. For me, for sure at this point, for me, like it became pretty clear that like, maybe some of these people are natural and they just have like freak genetics and they can do it. So, okay, great. But like I've overturned every stone that I can, mostly. And there's no way that I'm going to get that physique. And like at first it's like kind of was like disheartening and demotivating to realize like almost all these people that I've looked up to over the years have just been like clearly doing stuff and like lying about it. And that's why I made some more content where I'm like calling out fake natties, because I was like kind of pissed. And like even when Shizzy first came out and he was like claiming natural start, like I believed it. And I was like, I want to be like my version of Shizzy. Like maybe I won't be quite that big, maybe I won't quite look like that, but if he's natural, then like I have the mindset of like, if that fucker does it, like why can't I do it? You know? And like maybe that's not always the best mindset to have, because you do need to be objective and realistic with yourself. But that's always been my thought, and like following these people, that's what's driven me to get to this point. But I hit it like kind of a level where I'm just like, there's just no way I can get to that level. And if I think about myself as like an old man looking back, like I want to look and be like, in my life as a human, I achieved that like level of like muscular physical excellence that I want. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I did that shit. Like, and have pictures and videos, and I can like check that box to be like, that I did that. Like while I was like in my prime-ish, like that's something I did with my life that I'm like really proud of. And putting myself in that thought process, I was like, I would regret it more to not do it, because I'm worried about the message that it would send to people, because I want to keep making content, because I really enjoy making content as part of working out, like pairing the two together. And so not doing it because I want to avoid promoting that, because I think a lot of people already are. I was like, I will regret that more. And so then the options are, I want to do this for me, and I'm okay with the risks, and I understand what I'm doing and what I'm taking on. And I don't want to get into all the details, but I'm doing it with a process that's like as calculated and as safe as you could, but there's still risks, 100%. 100%. Anybody who presents TRT to you as like, it's 100% just a health improvement, there's unknowns, there is risk. It's seemingly quite safe. It's not like steroids the way people view it, which is, I think, part of the issue is like, there's this like steroids blanket term that encapsulates a whole wide distribution of different drugs and different dosages. And like on the extreme end, you could have like a gram a test a week, tren, fucking Anavar, insulin, growth hormone, like everything. And then on the lower extreme end, you could have somebody who's doing like moderate level TRT, which is like injecting testosterone at like 100 to 160 milligrams a week. Like those are not the same thing, but the like public's view of it is like there's one umbrella term that encapsulates all those things, which are actually very different. That's like a topic for another video. But point is that I've decided to do it, and that what I want to promote is to do what I'm doing. Oh, we got battery freaking died because we're rambling. Oh, and we probably need to close this at least, so we don't look completely blotched out. Okay, battery died, but we're back. If you're still here, awesome. And thanks for watching. But what I was saying is that what I want to promote is what I've done, which is to stay natural for potentially continuously, but at least for the first like Like I've stayed natural. I started first training at 18 years old. I'm about to be 33. So that's 15 years ago. Obviously things got derailed for a couple of years in the middle with injuries. And then we just kind of, the past 5 years, I've been doing just arms and then legs the last 3 years. The first like 4, 5, 6 years, I was just training normally, everything. Anyways, like a 15-year journey where I stayed natural the whole time, which is what I would encourage people to do. And I think it would be a shame to like jump on something early. Mostly because, well, there's obviously health risks, but largely because I don't think you're even going to get the benefit that you want. Like if you're a youngster, or even if you're in your early 20s or whatever, and like you don't have aspirations to be like a championship level bodybuilder, but you just like training and you want to like just get more jacked, or you want to do it for like a sport or some performance or whatever, or you want to make some social media content, whatever it is, I think you're way better off to like develop a foundation. I know that sounds like lame. People are like, no, give me the shortcut. I don't think that. I think you could actually see worse progress if you're just getting into the gym, or you're like new to it, or you're like really young and you decide like, I'm going to just like take a bunch of sauce or even just do TRT, because you're not going to get the benefit out of it because you haven't built your foundation of consistency, intensity. You haven't built your skills and your habits to actually milk all the value out of that compound or substance that you're putting in yourself. And so I think you're taking like an unnecessary risk where you're not even going to be getting the benefit, and you don't even know how much you care about the gym or like transforming your body. If you're like 22 or 19 or something, it's like 5 years from now when you're like in your mid to late 20s, you might not even be into the gym anymore. And then you're going to look back and regret that you like took these things, and maybe there's like some long-term consequences, or like even if you just do TRT, which is like low dose of testosterone, you're shutting off your natural production, which isn't like a small thing. And you know, you're potentially committing to doing it for a long time, or if you don't, you got to find a way to come off, and your levels will probably come back, but there could be some long-term side effects. And if you add in additional compounds or high doses of testosterone, then there's way more risk. And it's not even gonna be, I think a lot of people that do that at a young age or are like influenced to do it now are gonna end up regretting it 100%. One, because the results will not be nearly as good as they could be if you just stayed natural and actually developed your process. They're probably gonna be temporary because you're not gonna stay on the gear forever if you're not like super invested into the gym and you're just kind of like casual. And then I don't think you're actually gonna develop like an amazing physique, because so far as I understand it, like it's going to help a lot, but it's not just going to magically transform you without actually training consistently, training really hard, and getting invested into like all the shit that I talk about on this channel. And you're not going to have any of those insights. You're not going to experience as much of those things because you just hopped on at such a young age, at such like an infancy in your training. And I think it's going to like almost neuter you physically and mentally from being able to develop your approach with the gym. And it's not for everyone. I think it should only be like if you're doing it for additional muscle gain, which is like a lot of my motivation, you should be super serious about the gym, and it should like be really important to you. And like that's where I'm at, where I'm like, it's my number one activity that I get more satisfaction and joy than anything else in terms of like physical activities or like pursuits to do. And I care about it more than like other shit. And I'm like spending 3 hours of most days in the gym doing that. And I've been doing that for years. And I want to continue to do it. And I want to achieve a physical result that I think I need a little hormonal assistance to do. But I would still promote that unless you're at that point where you're like, I'm really extreme about the gym. I'm so hardcore about this. This is like the number one thing in my life, and like I dedicate so much of my time to it, and I know I love it, and I want to continue to do it for a long time. Like if you're still uncertain about those things, or if you're just really young, I think it's not worth it, because you might end up regretting it, and you're going to get more value out of just staying natural and developing your process and going through some of those hoops first. So I think like a standard is like you need to be training really fucking dialed in for a minimum of 5 years, 5 to 10 years. And I think you should build at least 30 pounds of muscle. I added 50 pounds of muscle, primarily only training arms and legs. And I don't have like elite level genetics. There's like plenty of people in my high school that I grew up with, that I played sports with, that had like equal or superior muscle gain genetics than me. And like even like friends, and like I didn't grow up in some freak place. You know, I think that's a reasonable, like, rough estimate. You know, I wasn't the guy that was just like fucking yoked. There was other dudes that were like that, even in my small high school. So I was like athletic and played sports and was like, you know, reasonably fit. I had like good genetics, above average, but not elite. And I think the fact that I can think of just like friends in my social circle that like gained muscle more quickly than me, or like were like jacked without even like training hard. I'm like, if that person did everything that I did, I'm like almost certain they'd be more jacked than me. And so that's why I think that if you really commit yourself to it, 30 pounds of muscle is like very attainable, even if you have below average genetics or bad genetics. And I think until you've done that, I don't think that you're going to get all the benefit of potentially putting other compounds in your body, because you haven't built your process to squeeze all the juice out of that orange. So I think it's just not worth it. That's my opinion. So my whole point is that like I would promote the same thing. And if you get to the same place as me, then I think it's your decision. And that's what I looked at for myself, where I was like, this is my decision, where like I want to do this for myself. And I'm in an extreme, kind of more extreme scenario where 99% of my viewers even, or people that are watching, haven't done all the same things and aren't living the same way that I am. So it may not make sense, in my opinion, for you to do it. But does that mean that I should not do it to achieve the goal that I want? Again, not everybody's going to agree. Some of you are going to be pissed off and just blanket statement like anything to do with not being natural and talking about it honestly is just blanket bad, no matter what. And I'm not here to change your mind. I fully accept that some people will feel that way. But this is the decision that I've decided to make, and I want to 100% be honest about it. I'm not sure how transparent I want to be about details, although there's like so many fascinating things that I've always wondered as like a natural person for all these years, is like what happens when you start putting external testosterone into your body. Like there's so many freaking questions, and like I do think it would be very valuable. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think, because I'm hesitant to talk about the details, because then again, I think that's maybe leaning more into like promoting it, even though, you know, my message is still going to be the same, and people, you do with it what you want. But I think you should stay natural for at least 5 to 10 years, put on at least 30 pounds of muscle, and then give yourself the chance to see how much you actually fucking care about the gym, and how much you actually care about your goals, and how much you actually care about having an exceptionally muscular physique, and then make the decision. That's my opinion. That's what I promote. I would promote what I did. And I think if you end up in that same spot as me, then you really believe that, you know, and you want to dedicate your time to getting that result, you kind of need to take something to do it, and you really want to do that, and you're super committed, then who's to say that that's not the right thing to do? Another note is that, you know, I'm not going to lie and say that like I'm doing TRT because like my test is really low and I'm just doing it for health benefits. Although there's a lot of people that fall into that category. Like I think if you really do have like super low levels, that, you know, some of the potential risks of being on testosterone, which aren't massive at low doses, are going to outweigh the negatives of having like 160 level testosterone. Like that's like, I believe like I'm not a freaking doctor, but like from what I can tell, I think the negative health effects from that are going to be more significant than some of the potential negative health effects or risks from injecting external testosterone into yourself. So I think for those people, it's like it's going to be hard to just operate and be healthy if your test level is 130. So like you probably should consider looking at TRT, but that's not me. Point being though, a year and a half ago, I got my blood work done, and it was 630. And because I was looking at doing some natural test boosters, I wanted to make content of like a before and after. It didn't end up happening, but anyways, I got my blood work done, 630, and then this past fall, considering, you know, doing TRT again, like thinking about it more and like maybe I'm ready to do it, got my blood work done, it was at 450, decided to not do it for the reasons I've outlined, whatever. Went on some natural test booster supplements. I tried Tomcat Alley by itself, and then I tried the Gorilla Mind product Sigma, which has Tomcat Alley, Fadoja, Agresta, some other things. I made a video on it. Many of you maybe saw it, where, you know, and then I got my levels checked at the end. So I, you know, got them checked. They're at 430 nanograms per deciliter, and then took the natural testosterone boosting compound herbs, and then got them checked again, and they were at, or it was 450 in the beginning, and then it was 430 afterwards. So it's basically the same, went down a little bit. And I thought the first one was maybe because I was like kind of sick. So I was like, maybe that's, because that's like 200 points lower than what it was like a year and a half ago. It's kind of unusual. Maybe that's because I was sick. So I was expecting the next one to be higher, even if the test booster didn't do anything, but it was actually, again, like the same, even a little bit lower. And so I was like, okay, like 430 is not like in the gutter, but it's like low normal. And like, given that I'm also 33, so from this other lens of like testosterone, like optimization, where, you know, there's this whole like expanding community or like literature where like people are like, you know, when you're in your 30s or 40s, instead of having like 300 or 400 level tests, like go on TRT and get it up to like 800, 900, doesn't appear to be that there's many downsides. Like there's an argument to do that just for like energy levels, libido, overall health. And I'm not like 100% in that camp. And for anybody who's unfamiliar, that's kind of the general theme of that. And so I think there is an additional layer where I was like, my levels have dropped quite a bit in the past like year and a half, 2 years. They're like low normal. And I think that is an additional factor that like maybe it makes sense to like start out with like a TRT protocol, because I want to try to gain additional muscle, but also like, what if I get my levels up to 900 and like I have way more energy and like I didn't really know the last like year, you know, it's like, yeah, maybe I am more tired all the time. Maybe I'm not as horny. Like I started thinking about all these things. I'm like, yeah, I guess maybe some of those things have changed. Hard to like pinpoint exactly because I couldn't say like I was experiencing severe, and you wouldn't experience like severe low T symptoms with your testosterone still being in the 400s, so far as I understand. Again, not a medical doctor, just done a lot of research and tried to learn about it. Anyway, so that's an additional kind of context where I was like 33, low normal test, and the goal that I want to achieve, I think most people who achieve that goal are at least on a low dose of testosterone at the very least. And if I take an audit of like what I want to do for myself in this life while I'm alive, like I've already dedicated so much of my time and energy to the gym and like chasing that goal physique and thinking it's real, mostly because there's so many fake natties. And even if they're not, it's like genetically they're just like some like alien morphed person that like I couldn't look like that 100% natural. So regardless, if this end physique or end goal is like really important to me, then I either have to choose to take the risks or take the plunge to start taking testosterone, or I need to like digest that like, I'm probably never going to get there. And so meditating on that and thinking about it and doing like the rocking chair test, I was like, I 100% want to do it. Like I 100% want to do it. And I'm totally willing to take the chances and the risks, and I'm going to do it as safe as I can. And I want to do this with my life, 100%. And the only concern was like, I just don't want to promote that broadly to people. And so it is what it is. It's not perfect. I'm not trying to make justifications. Like it is what it is. I'm not expecting like everybody to agree and be like, yeah, that's the right reason. And that's what you should do. Like everybody's going to have their own opinion. I don't even know how many people made it this far. Like maybe there's like 3 people left watching, so it doesn't freaking matter. But moving forward, like I'm going to be transparent that, you know, I'm on TRT, and I'm excited to see, you know, what potential additional progress I can make in the gym. I'm also excited to see, you know, what changes with my energy levels, my libido, my overall health. And I'm not promoting that people should do this generally. I think for muscle gain reasons, you should stay natural for as long as you can and put on at least 30 pounds of muscle and train for at least 5 to 10 years. I genuinely believe that that is way better, unless you're trying to be like a competitive championship level bodybuilder. If you are, then you need to go down that road and explore like full-blown anabolic use. But anybody who's not that, and you're just a gym enthusiast like me, and you love training, you love getting a pump, you love talking about fitness, you're just passionate about it, and you want to build your physique to look like a certain level, I think do what I did. Stay natural for 15 years, and if you get to the same place as me, then you can make the decision. But get there first is my advice. That's what I want to promote. And you can make incredible progress. Like, I still think my physique now, as like well, technically not natural, but it's been like 12 days. My physique up to, like, I started January 2nd. So my physique up to January 1st is like, only training arms and legs with like good genetics, but not elite genetics. I think for me, I feel very proud of that. I'm like, that's incredible. Like but I still am like, I'm not at that level. Like the goal that I've been aiming for this whole time, and like the like level of muscular development that I want, I'm still not there. And like, I'm just not going to get there without a little extra assistance. And that's my own decision. That's for me to decide. And if you want to know, like, I'm keeping a journal of like everything that's happening as I'm entering into this like TRT world. And I'm like, if you haven't noticed from the channel, I'm like a super analytical, fucking detail oriented person. Like everything with training, like if you watch this video, I'm like rambling on about smallest training details and like things I've noticed. It's not beneficial for sleep, because it's like, dude, just stop thinking about details and pointless shit and like laying there like awake. My whole life has been that. I've never been good at sleeping. But the benefit is like, I am very analytical, and I come to conclusions, and I think I find insights sometimes that other people don't, because I'm just always thinking about shit, even if I don't want to. Anyways, my point is that when I was researching and looking into this whole like TRT thing over the last like 2 years, there's not much great information. Like it was a long fucking journey of like how to beast YouTube videos. If you type in how to beast TRT, that's a great resource. One of the few people that like documented it and like share a lot of information. And then just like Reddit/TRT, Reddit/testosterone, and then just like scouring the internet, talking to people. Being here in Florida, there's definitely a higher instance. So I've like met people, and I've just been like picking their brain about it. And it was like 2 years of like accumulating knowledge from all these random, like piecing it together to make an educated decision. Because I believe I'm making an educated decision, and I'm making as calculated of a decision as I can. Because I did not want to do it willy-nilly and like not understand what I'm doing. You can't predict everything. Like there's a point where like, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You can't predict the future. But I feel like I really checked every box that I possibly could. But it took a ton of work and a ton of time. And I was like, it would be so useful for like an earlier version of myself to have me now being transparent, sharing all the details. Be like, this is what I'm doing, this is what's happening, this is what you should do, this is this is that, this is that. Like I haven't really seen anyone be like super transparent about it and like super analytical and informative and like sharing the benefits from like different viewpoints of like, what did it do for your energy versus what did it do for your muscle gain versus like what did it do for recovery, sleep, like how did everything change? Like what happened with training? Did training change? Like did different things produce growth differently? Like what happened with your body? Like to me that stuff is like so fascinating. And the reason I'm still rambling and talking about this is because part of me wants to share that, but then I'm worried I'm like stepping more into like the promotion of it. And I don't want to promote it to people that shouldn't do it. And there's a lot of people that shouldn't do it. And again, I've given you my criteria, which is like, this is what I'm doing. Train natural for 10 to 15 years, gain 30 pounds of muscle minimum, or 5 to 10 years training, something like that. And then assess how important the gym and this physique really is to you. And like why you want it. Like think about that for a while. And then like do the research and understand the risks. And then if you still want to do it, like make like an educated decision. That's what I'm promoting. But yeah, I'm hesitant to like talk about all the details because I'm worried it'll promote it more potentially. So you guys let me know what you think for anybody who's made it this far. Because I'm undecided. Like I definitely wanted to make the video to just be transparent and like let everyone know, because like I'm not gonna lie about that, and I'm not gonna dress it up in a way where like this is the perfect decision. And like I think other people that are public, like sometimes their justifications are like a politically correct version of their truth, where they're like, it's just for health and like everybody should be. I'm like, like why do you like? For me, I'm like, a lot of it is because I want to gain more muscle because I love the freaking gym. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, that my goal physique is my version of like a Mike Thurston or this like Matthew dude, and like I want to see if I can get there by being on TRT as a first step and assessing my health and what happens and going from there. I don't want to be like a massive bodybuilder, like taking a whole bunch of compounds, but like maybe being on like a low dose of testosterone, my health will improve and I'll be able to gain an additional 10 pounds of muscle. And given that I've like developed my training to such an intensity, I feel like I'm going to get all the benefit out of that testosterone. So I'm super committed. I never miss sessions. I'm like so dedicated to this. I'm not like a competitive bodybuilder, but like from like just a gym enthusiast. Like I'm all the way in. You know, like maybe I could build that physique with like a little bit of hormonal support or being on TRT. And then I would achieve that goal that I've been striving for. Like everybody I've consumed content from or like look up to kind of has this look that like, that's my personal preference. That's not what everybody should have, but like, like you can see in these examples I'm talking about, like the level of muscularity is just like on that next level where I'm like, that's a fucking sick physique. Like that's my goal. Like if I can be my version of that, like my bone structure is different, like things are going to look different, but like my version of that, like that's what I want. Like that's fucking sick. And I want to achieve that while I'm still like in my physical prime and like being 33. I'm like, I don't know, like I can't wait another 5 years and be like 38 or like 40. Like I feel like the time is now to do it and like see what happens in the next like couple years. And then after that, it's like maybe it's time to just like get into something else. You know, like maybe I keep doing TRT because like, you know, you are shutting off your natural production. You can come off of it, but like it is potentially a lifelong commitment, which like I've made peace with. And like some of the potential negative side effects I've also made peace with. And, you know, but I could see myself like getting really into training and pushing to the max, and then maybe I just maintain and try to keep my physique at that level. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I don't even know what's going to happen, you know? And like I was contemplating, like maybe I'll wait a month or two and like really let it kick in before I talk about it, because like maybe I have negative side effects from the low dose and like, or like maybe it doesn't really lead to much of a difference. And then I can just like have not mentioned it and not deal with like blowback or anything, you know? Like maybe I only gained like 3 pounds of muscle, you know, and I'm like, like, is it really worth it? You know, like maybe I feel the same. My energy's not any better. You know, I'm just like, like maybe I'll just go back to being natural and get into fucking tennis. You know, like, I don't know. Like maybe it's just not possible for me. Cause like, I don't want to like a lot of people too, their concern is it's like a gateway, you know, and they're like, oh, you're going to do that. And like, then you're going to up the dose and then you're going to add in more compounds. And like, I don't want that look. I don't want to look like an extreme body. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just not my desire. Like to me, it's like a very definite, like that is too much for my personal preference, where I think a lot of people get into it and it just spirals. Whereas like, I have a very like kind of defined view of like what my goal physique is. And, you know, the examples that I've used, it's like, that's not like a super extreme, like, high dose, you know, gear bodybuilder look, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not my preference. And so, yeah, I was like, if a low, you know, dose, like TRT level doesn't produce, you know, some extra results, I'm not going to just like up the dose and just like I don't really want to go into that realm of like heavier usage. You know, in it being a calculated decision and understanding the risks, like those risks to me at that point are not worth it for me. But the risks of like low dose testosterone TRT are worth it to potentially get the outcome that I want. And so that's why I've decided to do it. But my whole point being is like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? So I was like, maybe I won't talk about it, But then some of this footage, like the one thing I've noticed for sure is like my delts seem to have like popped out a little bit more. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just placebo. Because like, is this fucking sick lighting or what? You know, look at the tricep. Whew. You know, maybe it's just placebo because I've only like been doing it for 12 days. And like from the research I've done, it's like you probably want to wait like at least a month before you start like drawing conclusions from it. Because I don't really feel any different. Like there's not like drastic changes, but it seems like, you know, so I was looking at the footage and I'm like, Like I think I'm like, sometimes it's hard to look at your own physique objectively, but it's like I think I'm like a little juicier. So like I should just talk about it. You know? I was like, I know what I want to say, I know why I did it, and I know what the truth is, and like I don't want to even be posting anything and not being open about what I'm doing, because I think that's just very deceiving. And you could have the whole argument that like some people have where it's like, you know, maybe it's better that all these people over the years who have like the most epic physiques, like in social media, promoting them on social media and profiting massively, it's like maybe it's good that they are all lying about using, at the very least, testosterone. Because then it would influence more people to do it, you know? And that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, yeah, because people see that result and then they want that physique, so they buy that person's training program based on the result, but that person not sharing like the anabolics they're using or like whatever they're doing is deceiving, but at least it doesn't encourage people to also take some kind of compound. But then I was like, but then you're like assuming that other people can't make their own decisions, you know? And you're like, I'll make the decision, like we should make the decisions we shouldn't tell people the truth because people are too stupid to make a good decision. And like, I don't really like that idea, you know, because I believe in like freedom of information, like truth, like give people the truth. I don't know. And it's a tough conversation because you can make the argument. If like everybody on social media, like you snap your fingers and everyone was just being honest, like regardless of what their message is, like even my message where I'm like train naturally, but like there's going to potentially be some people that like see my arms and like see that I'm like being honest about being on TRT, and then they're just like, okay, I'm going to do TRT. That's a very possible reality. And so like if you snap your fingers and it's like everyone who's putting out content and personally benefiting from it, all of a sudden they just get truth pilled and they have to be honest. Like what effect would that have on the masses? You know? There's just pros and cons to it, because on the other side, somebody like me who like believed a lot of these people, and I've just like talked about some examples, but like there's so many different like fitness influencers like that I'm like, oh man, like Ulysses, Simeon Panda, Mike Thurston, Dickerson Ross, like some of these people that have been around, because I'm 33 for a long time, Joseph Rakic, I don't know, like all these people, like just because everybody's claiming natural, like especially like 5-10 years ago, you just believe that was like a natural physique. And I'm somebody who like, I probably believe I'm like the opposite of body dysmorphia, where like body dysmorphia is like you're big but like you think you're small. I'm like the opposite. I like make some gains. I'm like, I'm fucking huge, yeah, look at this shit. You know, I'm like, I'm that guy. You know, I have to like look at an image of myself and be like, oh, okay, no, I'm not. You know? So it's like all these people claiming natural and me just being like, if you can fucking do it, I can do it. So like I've just like, I would say maybe vulnerable to just believing it for a long time. And even up to like the last couple, I obviously became more like educated and realized a bit more, but even up to the last couple months, like even like Shizzy's a more recent influencer. Like I was like, fuck, that's insane. But like he's claiming natural, like all these other people claim like he must be natural. And like I remember being in the gym being like, fuck, I'm gonna get fucking 21-inch arms like Shizzy. Be like, he's natural, like he can do it, I can do it, like fuck that shit. And I have my like EDM and I'm like, yeah, you know? But then the truth is, he's on shit, all these other people are on shit. You know, like, I think I would have rather known the truth. And like, it's developed into something that I love and want to continue to pour into. But like from the beginning, if I knew the truth, it'd be interesting to see what I would have done. I might not have kept training so hard. I might have just done other shit. Maybe. You know? Or I might have continued to chase it, but understand that it's not realistic to get there. And like, you can still like admire something and be like, that's amazing. And like, obviously you're on some additional compounds that I'm not doing or I'm not going to do. And I get that. So now I have a more realistic view. And like, maybe, you know, as you're going, like, again, I've never been somebody that's like super down and like on myself and like body dysmorphia. But like a lot of people, like I think they get super discouraged because they look at these individuals that are like, have great genetics, and are on stuff and are like talking about training, and then the people follow all their recommendations, and then they look nothing like that person and they get discouraged and just give up. You know? So it's like, my whole point is, I believe in the freedom of information and the truth, and let people make their own decisions. Like, I think anytime you're getting into a situation where like, no, let's control the narrative because people don't know, like, people can't make good decisions on their own. It's like, that's not a democracy. That's not like an open community. That's like certain people thinking they're like elitist and they should control the information. Like, that's kind of, I know I'm getting conspiracy theory-y, but that's sort of like the vein of thought, right? That I think in the end, my personal belief is like, you should be honest and give people the truth, especially if you're going to personally gain from it. And like, think about all these like big fitness influencers that are like very successful and have like made a lot of money off of promoting themselves on social media and then selling training programs and talking about working out, yet they leave out like a huge component of what they're doing. You know what I mean? I'm like, I think that's worse than giving people the honest information. Even if it like promotes the like normalization of at least the discussion of PEDs. You know, and it's like, again, it's not a simple world where it's like easily black and white, one thing's right, one thing's wrong. But I think in my personal preference, I think it's a better world where you're honest and you tell the truth about what you're doing to get to a result. And then you let people make their own decisions because it's a free world. And you don't withhold that information because you think you're protecting people while also personally benefiting from it. Like, you know what I mean? Because the thing is, like, especially in the social media age now, the person who has like a realistic physique that like trains really hard is like your typical personal trainer. That like, if you go to a gym, you know, and they're fit, they're in good shape, you know, they've got good muscle definition, like guy, girl, whatever. But on social media, and I've like seen these people, and I was that person once when I used to work as a personal trainer. It's like, in the gym, you're in good shape, you have clients that pay you, you're, you know, supposedly educated about fitness, and you're helping people. So you're like kind of like a beacon of like fitness. Those people on social media like get no views, no eyeballs, no nothing, because it's not extreme enough. It's like, yeah, you're fit for like regular life, but like on social media, you're competing with the world. But like, that's like a realistic goal for most people, like, that are natural. Is like your classic like personal trainer. That, again, not all personal trainers are natural, but like, I think that's, generally speaking, there's a good chunk of them that like have good physiques, have good advice. Those are the people that should have the attention. If in an honest world, for the average person who's getting into working out, they should follow somebody with a physique like that. That's like, you know, muscular, toned, but it's like, isn't going crazy on social media, isn't some like extreme, crazy fucking muscle monster physique god person. That's like a realistic goal for most people. Like, if the average person like trained really hard and followed their diet and like listens to this person's information, like, they can get a physique similar to that 100%. But that's not what happens. Instead, on social media, everybody's like consuming their information and knowledge and their exposure. You have the most extreme physiques, best genetics, majority on some form of PEDs, and so many people are like looking to that person for advice, buying their training programs, buying their coaching, buying their supplements, like listening to everything they say, because they want to look like that person. Otherwise, people would buy the kind of regular trainer shit, right? So like, I think the justification that, you know, well, like, okay, I'm this like social media person and I have like an absurd physique and I'm selling training programs, like, but I don't talk about my usage of anabolics or whatever it is. And that's still okay though, because the average person, like, the information's still good, and the average person, you know, probably shouldn't be doing this stuff, and so they should just buy my training program, and I'll sell fucking 100,000 of them this year and make millions of dollars, and, you know, it's actually good because it's encouraging people to get healthy and active and whatever. I'm like, yeah, those are all true points, but most people are buying that program because they want that result, because they want to look like you. You know? Otherwise, the like regular freaking personal trainer from Good Life Fitness would be selling 100,000 programs, or have thousands of clients or whatever, you know? But people want the extreme physique, but they're just being lied to about what you have to actually do to get there. So I think that's worse, personally. Obviously, you know, you can comment, tell me like what everybody reacts differently, you know, like, but I think you should tell people the truth and be honest and be open. And yeah, I mentioned in other videos, people don't, because the general public's view of steroids is like one thing. And like there's a lot of people that are like maybe on TRT or like low doses of testosterone and like have healthy blood and stuff, and like they're just claim natural, because there's other people that are like on, you know, massive amounts of compounds and like, well, I'm not on that, but like everybody's gonna think I'm on that if I say I'm on anything, so I'm just gonna claim natural instead. So it's like a lack of education, but part of the reason it's a lack of education is because nobody's honest. Or not many people are, right? Or transparent. So the public has no idea, because a lot of these people in like using lower doses and like having these like aesthetic muscular physiques, but like they don't look like, you know, a stage ready like classic physique or open bodybuilder, that most people think that's natural. I've had people argue that The Rock is natural. You know, like people still believe Shizzy's natural. Like because you have so many people fucking lying. And anyways, I'm just rambling, but I think that being honest is yeah, I mean, because the thing is, if you're on like tons of steroids and shit, like it's illegal potentially depending on where you are. So like I get that, but like most people don't think, like I think the average person, you know, could see someone who's on like a full blown like extreme bodybuilding cycle, that, you know, they're not natural. I don't think that person's fooling many people. But there's this like middle ground of enhanced that, and I think you could just say you're enhanced. Like what are they gonna get you on? And like nowadays, like TRT is like mine's prescribed from a doctor. Like it's completely legal. You know, so obviously, you know, I'm like definitely gonna be transparent. But even if it wasn't, you know, you could just tongue in cheek like say like, oh, I'm not natural or I'm enhanced. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like there's no proof or evidence of what you're taking. Like, are you really gonna get, like, I think that's kind of just a cop out now. I don't think that's like a good reason to not be honest. And you don't have to go into the details, but at least, you know, letting people know that like, this is not, I did not do this naturally. You know, I had to take compounds, I had to alter my hormones, I had to do these additional ingredients. I don't know, yeah, you can let me know, comment what you think. Everybody has a different opinion, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see where things progress, because I think more people are like waking up and realizing, and yeah, I don't know, there's no perfect answer, but yeah, that's what I'm doing, that's where we're going, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. You know, so far from how I can see it, it's like reasonable, that, you know, having like 400 level testosterone and then getting on TRT, that I could put on like 10 pounds of muscle, which is what I'm hoping for. That's exciting. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. And then yeah, let me know if you really want to know like details about everything. Like there's so much content that I could already make, that I think there is a demand for, that I think like the reason to do it is I would be like, I'm helping people make an educated decision, because the information is just not openly being discussed. And for me to get to an educated decision, it took a really long time. And I had to be really diligent and patient and really go through all these steps, to make an educated decision, and the right decision, which this is the right decision for me. But not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody's meticulous and like analytical and has enough anxiety to like think about regrets and like analyze, like, you know, like some people just fucking make a decision impulsively, which I'm not saying that's, you know, it's better and worse. Like those people can probably fall asleep at night because they don't think about everything. Maybe like sometimes I'm like, that'd be better, dude. Like just fucking turn your brain off, just do shit. Don't think about it. Yeah. So let me know if you have like a lot of interest in that, and it will help me to try to determine if I think that would be a net benefit. Because the downside is like there isn't really a ton of open information sources, so like some people are making uneducated decisions because they don't really have all the information. So talking about it openly would maybe help people make educated decisions, but then the downside is like maybe it will promote it more. And I kind of like right now I want to mitigate that. So like I'm just explaining why I'm doing it and being transparent and honest about it, but I'm not sure if I want to make lots of content about that specifically for those reasons. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope that you guys continue to rock with me. I'm gonna keep making content, keep pushing, keep training hard, and keep fucking living life. All right, let's see. Rocket, you want to say bye? You're just a sleepy little guy. He had a little panic this morning, so he's all tired out. He was really barking. There he is. Look at this guy. Oh, he's all sleepy right now. He gets all sleepy. Right? Here's a tired little guy. He's like, "Mom, put me down. I don't want to be here." Okay, I'll put you down. All right, thanks for watching. If you want to do the arm program, get giant freaking arms like Rocket. Be a freaking fake Natty. This guy's a fake Natty. Greg Doucette needs to do a Natty or not on Rocket. Totally a fake Natty. Yeah, if you want to make some arm gains, arm program. If you want coaching, if you want to work one-on-one, me as your trainer. Trying to take on some new clients. So fill out an application if you want to get swole. Have a great day. Wow. What a freaking ramble fest. Good God. Whew.